It's time for architecture, coffee, and ink. Hello, this is Hollywood C, and you're listening to Architecture, Coffee, and Ink, a podcast dedicated to introducing concepts, detailing out designs, and tackling the architecture you might not realize the meaning behind. I'm your hostess, and I'm here today to start introducing you to the designs that make you wonder why. So I ask you to brew your coffee, grab your sketchbook and pen, and let's begin. Hello again, everyone, and I hope you are all having a wonderful and happy spooky season. Today, we are sneaking in a special before our big 50th episode coming out on Halloween. Today's episode is an interview with Vanessa Branco as we discuss her career, design, and her work at her current company, Sunbolt. Before we dive into the interview, I am going to take a moment to introduce Vanessa and a bit more about Sunbolt. While she is currently the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, she currently has over 20 years of experience in marketing and advertising. She was educated at Adelphi University and has worked with companies such as Miva, Medfast, and her own company, and eventually joined up with the Sunbolt team. She is the director of Carlos's Legacy, which supports homeless veterans. Now, many of you asked for me to also start including a little intro to the companies themselves. So let's take a moment to talk about Sunbolt. As Vanessa will discuss later on in the episode, Sunbolt was created in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. James Ines and Ian Jones saw the need for a renewable and off-grid energy source, as so many people lost power and were unable to call for help in the aftermath of the storm, something that we are seeing again in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Coming together, they created what would become Sunbolt, or Solar Charging Station, incorporated in furniture. I have several images included on the site, like always, along with the link that I have also included in the show notes. But with that, I'm excited to welcome Vanessa onto the show. Hello and welcome to the show. First, as with all my interviews, I want to take a second and just introduce you to my listeners. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey to your current role?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Vanessa Branco. I currently am the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at Sunbolt. Prior to joining Sunbolt in 2018, I was always in the marketing and advertising world. I started out at a company called, it's Miva, but it was originally, the section I was in was screensavers.com. So very early on, when people actually downloaded screensavers, we were the company that created them and designed screensavers. So speaking of design, this was designing screensavers. And then, so I was in the digital advertising space pretty much the entirety of my career so far. And then I moved on to a weight loss category through an agency. So I was handling publicly traded weight loss company there. And then moved on to a baby mattress company, Newton Baby. They were one of my clients. And I had a consulting company in the middle of this whole thing where I was helping brands expand their businesses online, but also startups who didn't know the first thing about how they're going to get started. So I would either connect them to the right people, the right, email companies, and, from everything from designers to developers and advertising mediums. Then I am here at Sunbolt, which is a completely different space for me. It's renewable energy. We manufacture solar charging stations, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. But that's what I'm doing now. I love it. I'm managing the sales, the advertising, marketing, anything kind of like from the front line, and then moving on to, creating and helping develop new products, and pretty much wearing any hat needed to get the job done and keep things moving forward. So.
Well, since you've already segued so nicely, do you want to go ahead and introduce Sunbolt to everybody as well?
Absolutely. So Sunbolt was created during the aftermath of Superstorm or Hurricane Sandy. So we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, but we really were created based on a need that our founders saw. They saw the need. It was a very simple need. When there's a natural disaster and the power is not there, after a week or two, people need to go back to work at some point, right? The company still opened, and they saw the struggle that they were having to not only work, but connect with their loved ones. They had maybe cell phone coverage, but they didn't have a place to charge their devices. And they were already in the solar business. So they said, we can create an extremely durable structure that will withstand hurricanes that when the grid fails, there is something that will be able to charge laptops, mobile devices, have some lighting. But it was really just a simple concept as that. And they created one of the products that we still sell, which is our top seller, the Campus XL. And it became a business because the University of California, Riverside wound up buying what they now have 22 of them. So they knew that they had something there. From then, they've continued to grow. Now we have 4 lines of product in the thing. And I came on in 2018 to, increase their marketing efforts. And we're in 35 states. And then we're, well, maybe 36 now. I forget if we have one more state that we added. But we're in Mexico. We're in the U.S. Embassy in a country in Africa, Canada, Puerto Rico, Hawaii. So, we've expanded our territory quite a bit.
Well, that's really awesome. It sounds like you have such a diverse career. When you were stepping into this current role with this new product and everything, did you feel like it really prepared you in unexpected ways? Or did you feel like, every moment was building up to it, your current position? I'm not sure if I asked that correct.
I think I understand. Yeah, I think you did. So basically, if you love what you do, and by that I mean the advertising, marketing, creative aspect of it, seeing things flourish, if you will. I believe that if you have a good product, it's gonna sell. It's gonna sell itself. But you need that person to make sure people know it's even existing in order for it to sell itself, right? And I knew that this was a very big challenge because at the time, renewable energy, solar, they were talking about it, but it wasn't as big, right? And when you see competition, it means that you're doing something right. But there was really maybe 1 or 2 players that came out. So it was a big challenge, but it wasn't a hard transition for me because there was a mutual connection. My former boss that I worked with for probably 15 years at that time was the one who recommended me for the position. He had worked with the CEO of Sunbolt at the time in a different area. So when the Sunbolt CEO asked my former boss, do you know someone who can really take us to the next level, he recommended me. And that for me was like, I trust everything he said and did. So I was like, all right, sure, I never heard of this in my life, completely new, but sure, I'll look at it and see if there's anything I can do. And I looked at it. And I think when I started, I had no idea like what I was marketing. I was just trying to like figure it out and market it at the same time. And I hope that did answer the question that I'm believing you answered. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was definitely challenging, but that challenge made me excited.
Okay. No, thank you. That definitely answers my question. Your career sounds so amazing and diverse, like all the different aspects that you've covered, especially, just in design as a whole. Because it's an aspect of design, I think, as architects, we don't really spend a lot of time in school learning about how to market things, how to sell things. Like that's not anything that architects work on at all. I mean, I only graduated 2 years ago, so I'm not an architect yet, but that wasn't something that we covered until I got into a firm and I was like, oh wow, there's suddenly so much more that you have to do. Would you recommend anything for young designers? Is there any sort of, how would you encourage them to maybe not be like me and not know a lot about marketing before exiting school, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's interesting you asked that question. And I think I'm going to go back to something I just recently said in one of my meetings. We work with, he's a designer, but he's more on the developer side, right? He can design, but he's more behind the scenes a bit. And I love working with him because he knows he understands the marketing side of it as well. Sometimes it's very easy to get into the robotic part of it where you're designing something and in your opinion and whatever you're designing, you're looking at it from like a siloed standpoint. Like this looks great. We're going to make this green. I think this curved edge is going to go this net, but without doing any market research or without understanding how this is going to be promoted, like it looks great, but from a marketing standpoint, how is this going to be shared? Who's the audience? What is the creative aspect going to look like? Is it going to fit well in other advertisements? are the colors going to match, or are they going to look like they're just blending into another page and no one pays attention to it, like from a digital marketing standpoint. But I like when designers have some sense of, okay, we have this, now what? That now what piece, I work better with, obviously, with designers that will understand that, but understanding where I'm going to come from in the sense that I'm going to ask you, questions that are marketing related. And if I'm talking to a designer that doesn't know any of that, it's kind of a different language. So I think just like even just brushing up on the latest trends in marketing, and you don't have to be a marketing expert by any stretch of the imagination, but it makes the job easier working together when a designer does have a little bit of marketing knowledge. And there's so many books out there. You had someone on recently on one of your podcasts in marketing, so there's like even just little tips on your podcasts, and just listening to people talking about it just makes it easier communication wise, and not wasting your time designing something that isn't going to go anywhere, right? So it's like you have to get it to be seen as well. So
no, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much. I'm gonna shift a little bit. How within your current role do you get to experience design? Or a better way to ask that is, how does design speak to you within your current position?
So how I get to work with design and how it speaks to me. So the way that I get to work with design is I actually manage the industrial designers in the company. And getting back to your question about marketing and tying into design, all of the information that we get from the customers, from the marketing aspect, the comments and things are sent to our designers. So I work very closely with the design. I'm instrumental in how they are going to design new furniture. So for example, we had a lot of customers coming in saying, we love this product. Do you just have the top part of this product? We have everything else. We have existing furniture. We just need this. And I brought that back, and our designer created what we call the Eclipse. And she's creating other products based on the feedback and the questions that we get from our customers. So we're very big on listening to what our customers have to say. How the design speaks to me, in the case of Sunbolt, the ones that speak to me the most are the workstations, because they are not something that you'll see on other landscapes. They scream sustainability. It's not something I was ever familiar with. You see solar panels on roofs and things, but I never got to see them as eye level as I do with our workstation line. And they speak to me because they definitely make a statement on every landscape architect plans and campuses that I've seen them on. So I think it goes both ways, but I really work very closely with the design. They ask me my opinions and my feedback for pretty much every step of the way, because we have all that knowledge from the marketing and the sales side of it.
Yeah, so I think I've seen a couple of them. You have a couple up the road from me. You have, I think, 3 of them or so. But what was really interesting to me is I feel like when you say solar power, some people are worried that it's going to be this huge, bulking, massive structure. What I was struck by is that they were actually very like small, and they kind of fit into the landscape very, very well. And you mentioned landscape as well. And what's so interesting about the product is we're covering landscape, but we're also covering furniture design in one product, which is something that I think my show hasn't gotten the chance to really talk about in depth. Could you speak on the ways it impacts the landscape and landscape architecture?
Yeah. So some of our workstations, so there's a bit of site prep involved, right? So we look for areas that, if it's a very small piece of land, our workstations are probably not going to cover, right? Because we want like a 10 by 10 space. It's a huge, massive structure when it comes to our workstation lines. So let's take college campuses, for example. They might have a wide open space, wide open green space that you can't connect electrical to it, or you could, but it would be very costly to have to run wiring that far, right? So our units create an area that you can sit, you can have a coffee, whatever, you can study, you can read a book, you can relax, charge your devices since everybody is on your phone. You can charge your laptops. You can have lighting if it's dark out and you need to study and you don't want to be cooped up inside. So they do create that no-brainer, place that you can sit outside and study. From a sustainability aspect, on the landscape side, not only can you see them from the 3rd or 4th floor of the building, the university center, wherever you are, but you can also know right away that this campus is or looks like a green campus. They're big on renewable energy. They're forward thinking. they are, considering the environment. And from one of our other things is like outside patios and restaurants, if they have dining areas on campus, we have a line that a lot of people like, our solar carousels, where they create a very pretty environment where the round table and attached seating, you can color them to, you can color all of our units to match the school, the colors of the school. You can add graphics that will have the school logo or mascot. You can add signage if there's a schedule of ball games coming up, or if there's events happening, or the dining menus. So it really enhances it in a multitude of ways, from a sustainability, design. Our workstations are fully assembled when they are delivered. So from a site prep standpoint, it's really just making sure that the foundation can hold that extremely durable unit, because they're close to 2,000 pounds, 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. Our carousels and our stand-ups, we recommend placing them on like concrete. So if a area is all grass, we recommend a concrete slab to be placed before we put them on. But other than that, it's pretty easy, honestly, to get the units onto a site. We have units, when I said smaller, large areas, we also have the stand-ups, our sprint and dash, that fit into those smaller areas, or hiking trails, things like that. But it enhances an architect's plans to create a place that people can just enjoy the outdoors and continue to stay charged, and we know that everyone wants to stay charged. So that just it's not going away. So,
Yeah, that is an aspect I don't think I realized how big of an impact, like when I was really young and, dial-up was still a thing. You really didn't think about like the impact of cell phones then versus the impact now. Like I couldn't imagine not existing without my phone, which probably says a lot about me that I should get help with. When you're designing, I do have to ask, do you guys have BIM and Revit models and things like that?
oh
CAD?
yes, yep. We have the CAD, and I'm frequently asked from architects to send them over, or 3D drawings. We also create renders, so if they want to send us the high-res photo of an area, or we'll use Google Earth and things, and we'll create mocks for them of how our units would look to scale. So, oh yeah, we work very closely with architects. We actually just came back. One of the conferences that I was at last week was ASLA. So we were there, we exhibited in Washington, D.C., and we had a lot of architects coming to the booth and talking to us. And we made a little model of a park that had our 3D prints of some of our units to scale, to show what it would look like. So we do all of that.
So you must get a lot of travel time then across the country and seeing all fun and exciting places, or?
Prior to this, I did actually a lot more. We're starting to exhibit more in trade shows and things. We did ASLA prior to when I started in 2018, and didn't sound like it was the right time. And now we have a new team in place. We have, renewable energy and solar is a hot topic now. It's no longer just like, what is exactly, it's like, this is it. There's a lot of funding out there and people are talking about it. Unfortunately, with the hurricanes that had happened pretty much overlapping with ASLA, there was a lot of talk about that. And our units were created because of a hurricane. We didn't want or know that was going to be why we actually became a business, right? But it's why we became a business. So with Hurricane Helene, when it started, we started to talk about ways to help. So we contacted our customers, although we haven't heard back from some of them. I'm hoping they're okay. But we have like disaster relief and solar kits and things like that we are trying to, distribute to those who need like just a quick solar panel and stuff. And I know I went off on a tangent. We were talking about ASLA a lot, so it's top of my mind. But we deal a lot with architects, and we handle a lot of the stuff for them.
Well, thank you very much for all your work towards disaster relief, just as somebody in Tennessee. It's very appreciated, so thank you.
Absolutely.
What advice can you provide, especially for students looking to build their own furniture brands or create a product to fulfill a need?
Sure. Biggest thing is research.
Okay.
Biggest thing is research. If it's already out there, don't even worry about it. That means that there's a market for it, right? Create something better, create something a little more unique. There's, from that point, there's a million different pairs of jeans out there, brands, right? And they all pretty much do well. So don't let that deter you from what you want to do. If you believe in it, that's it. But research is my biggest thing. I have come across times where I would work with designers that had this great idea, and I'm like, I just spoke with a company that does that, and they had no idea. So, it's very important to gather as much as you can. Surveys, asking, focus groups, putting it out there, asking people what they would like, thinking about everything from color to shape to, if it's furniture, accessibility, branding. Are you going to put your logo somewhere that everyone can see it? Are you going to put it underneath the table? All those things are important. But comfortability, right? You don't want to design something that only works for someone who's 6'5" and doesn't work for someone who's 5'4". I mean, all of those things come into play. And it depends on what kind of furniture, is it going to be outdoor furniture, indoor furniture? But really it comes down to research and asking as much as you can to get the answers that you need and come up with something. And if it doesn't work the first time, send that out as a survey and ask them what they would do differently, and listen to the audience. But yeah, that would be the one thing I would start with, because I've learned so much, so many times I could be wrong, right? And there's so many times, especially from the marketing standpoint, that you're wrong. You think it's going to work in this sector, but then it works in a different one. The same thing holds true for design. You could think it looks amazing, but no one wants it, right? Because it's just not functional for them. So I just think if you believe in it, just do your research and make the best that you can.
Okay, so really a lot more people skills, I feel like, is an overall
I
like
think so. Yeah, I think so. Although, I mean, there are designs that I've seen that I'm like, I don't know how that's being sold, but okay. I don't know what it does or what it is, It's like, so I mean, there are those things, those anomalies, but no, I think I'm very much a believer in just really doing the research and really just making it the best you can and putting the best step forward that you can when it comes to design.
well, thank you. So, on to a broader question. Is there any sort of general advice you would have, especially for young designers, dreamers, and DIY enthusiasts, just as a whole, starting their career?
Same. I'm going to be redundant. I think it's just, find a mentor, but,
Okay.
look at what they've done. And if you can get in touch with them via LinkedIn or email or, following what they do, I think for me, learning as you go, diving into it. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid if you believe in it and you love what you do, then just do it, right? Wake up in the morning and get to work and do it. But from a DIY standpoint, I think now there's so many different resources out there. They have these free online courses. They have ones that aren't very expensive at all. They have so many different resources out there. But there's a lot of times where you're going to come up with something and it's not going to be good, or, it's not going to sell. It's just going to be a flunk. It's going to be a failure. And you're going to learn from that, because every single time, as they say, like every time you're learning from those failures, and eventually there's going to be a win. There's going to be a success. So don't give up. Just keep at it, keep at it. But yeah, if someone can take you under their wing and you can learn from them, that's one of the best things I had that growing up in my career. I had a mentor that really just believed in me when I didn't
Mhm.
even believe in myself. I didn't even know what I was doing half the time in advertising. I was really just right out of college, and he just didn't care what question I asked or anything. He just taught me everything and learned things that aren't even about design. If there's something that's complementary to it, and you think that it's going to enhance in some way, you find interest in it, learn it, because it can tie into whatever you're designing in the future too. So just be a sponge and be a sponge and don't get discouraged.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's great advice. I appreciate that. So since you, as you mentioned, you guys were talking during the conference about the hurricanes and everything, I did want to kind of follow up on what do you think is going to be next for Sunbolt and yourself? Like, where do you think you're going? Do you think the hurricanes are going to impact how you guys move forwards, or?
So unfortunately, because we don't want people to be in this situation, this terrible situation all around, but we do have ways to help. When they can't charge their phones, when they can't see because it's dark, when they have dirty supplies of things that they need for survival. So we're helping, and I can't really say too much on certain things.
Totally understand.
But we are constantly coming up with ways that I said keep it 80% on brand, keep solar and things, but if we have to add a little more because that's what's going to help, then let's do it, right? So we are coming up with things for that. Our workstation line, that's, for me, it's the best, highest quality, most durable thing I've ever seen. We had in Puerto Rico, after the hurricane, they bought more of our units because they said that they were just, we have pictures where there's people standing underneath the canopy covering themselves from the rain on because they're the most durable structures that were in the middle of nowhere. They had no other way to seek coverage, which for me, I have goosebumps even thinking about it. And even during the height of COVID, when things were shut down and you couldn't get to work, we were able to provide a way to open up safely because we had units that expanded the outdoor office, right? Expanded the office outdoors, that expanded the classroom outdoors. And as we all know, it's a lot better to be outside when there's germs, right, than cooped up in an area. So we had plexiglass, we had sanitizer like attached to the units that we were offering for obviously no charge. And we do have some places, there's a place in Hawaii too that has the units with the plexiglass and the sanitizing. So we do come up with ways, and for the future products of Sunbolt, we are coming up with other products in direct response to our customer needs. We don't just create, and going back to design, we're not creating something just because we think it looks nice. We're creating something that we know will help enhance people's lives, create, that kind of way for people to enjoy being outside and not have to spend a crazy amount of money wiring electricity to the middle of a cornfield, right? So, in the middle of nowhere, they can put a seating area and people can enjoy themselves. So we do have some products coming out that will be announced some point in 2025.
Well, awesome. Well, I wish you luck in that. Where can everybody find out more about Sunbolt or yourself or follow your career?
Sure. So for Sunbolt, you can go to our website. It's gosunbolt.com. We also have our handle, which is at gosunbolt, pretty much on all of our social media except LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just Sunbolt. For me, you can find me at Van Branc, VANBRANC. And that's pretty much what I go off of for all of my social media. And then you can email Sunbolt anytime at info@gosunbolt.com.
Awesome. Well, I do want to end on my fun question that I ask everybody that comes onto the show. So if you had an unlimited budget and a client who was willing to give you free reins over the scope and parameters, what would your dream project be?
I would stay where I am in this space. I think it's extremely exciting. But I would create it in Montauk, New York. I would say I want to create an office in Montauk. It's my favorite place ever. It's out like all the way east, on a cliff on the beach. And I would say I'm going to install solar workstations and solar carousels in this entire area. So I would stay where I am, but I would relocate from New York City to Montauk, New York. And that would be it. Cause I can't imagine. I really do love what I'm doing here. I think I found my dream job here.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
dream office sounds amazing. I'm not gonna lie.
That's my dream office. If we had unlimited budget, I would say, all right, listen, let's create it on a cliff in Montauk. So hopefully my founder is listening to this when we have it up, and we can, that's what I want to do. Yeah. So.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And I appreciate you coming on and talking about yourself and the company and everything like that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And with that, thank you once again for joining me. On a side note, I've posted a link on the Facebook page for Hurricane Helene relief efforts through the American Red Cross. If possible, please see how you can help. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts from. You can find me on Instagram at Architecture Coffee and Ink, email the show at architecturecoffeeandink@gmail.com, or the blog at architecturecoffeeandink.com. Architecture Coffee and Ink is a Hollywood C Studios LLC production. I'm excited to meet with all my designers, dreamers, and DIY enthusiasts next time. But in the meantime, may your coffee mugs be full and your inkwells never run dry.